Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. This is a Ukraine war news update. It's actually the second one for today. I've done one on the EU funding that's going Ukraine's way that was agreed upon over the last, 12 hours, really 24 hours. It's been a crazy few days in Brussels, and there's been some good news finally there, so that's excellent. But I've tried to unpick the details of what's going on. It's a little bit difficult because they're a bit thin on the ground as far as how the funding for the 90 billion euros loan is going to work. But what are we going to talk about today? Well, there's a couple of headline topics. We're going to talk about the destruction of equipment, some S-400 launchers that I've referenced previously. We're going to talk about the sad loss of Mi-24 helicopter, a Ukrainian helicopter that seems to have been shot down or maybe was taken out by a Shahed drone, who knows, but that has led to the loss of a Ukrainian crew. And we're going to talk about a tanker in the Mediterranean that has been hit, or some kind of explosion there. Anyway, it's resulted in the death of, I think, two people, one of whom is a high-ranking GRU official. So there are Russian intelligence operatives on, and high-ranking ones, on these tankers floating around the Mediterranean, and also some more detail on the submarine that definitely seems to have been hit in Novorossiysk. Okay, before we get to the details, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. That really makes a difference, and also keeps you abreast of all the news. So click on the bell icon and whatnot. So thank you very much for those who have already done so. Right, let's get into the long weeds of the details. I'm going to remove my name because that doesn't need to be there. Right, let's go. Okay, so we have the Ukrainian General Staff figures, and numbers for the personnel losses are well above 1,000. Again, all the usual caveats apply, of course, to these figures. That is good news for the Ukrainians, bad news for the Russians. 1,220 is a good number of casualties for the Ukrainians. One single tank, 10 armored combat vehicles, that's not too bad in that category. 18 artillery systems, that's down from what it has been, but still a pretty good haul. One single multiple launch rocket system. And then another good indicator of how active the front lines are, 111 vehicles and fuel tanks. That, together with the personnel, shows that the Russians are doing a lot of movement around the front lines, are therefore probably attacking in quite a few places, and are losing inordinate amounts of kit in so doing. Just on the personnel side of things, Ukraine has received another consignment of, sadly, dead bodies, although it's nice to get them back rather than have family members not knowing the outcome of, the fate of their loved ones. But Ukraine has received 1,003 fallen soldiers, which, according to Russia, belong to Ukrainian servicemen. Forensic experts will now conduct examinations to confirm their identities. The coordination headquarters has reported, because, of course, previously a number of Russians have been included in those dead bodies that have been returned. Okay, a bit of an anecdote here, but not the first one of this type. There was a story recently of two others who have been defending, I can't remember where now, in what area. Was it the Liman direction? Was it Serebyansky Forest? Anyway, two Ukrainian defenders from Varash, call signs Tequila and Chef, held a position near Pokrovsk in Donetsk region for over 160 days. That is 5 months plus. In addition to observation and reconnaissance, they provided support to brothers in arms who were evacuated after being wounded. So these guys, I mean, look at them there in the top. Look at that fresh-faced young man there. Look at him down here after 160 days. The beards on them, I bet they could do with a good shower. But this is incredible stuff. I'm sure after this war, there are going to be so many films and books written of these sorts of accounts. Eventually, Russian forces discovered their position and began attacking with drones and artillery. Russian infantry also launched an assault. In one of the battles, Musician, the defenders rotated in threes. So he was with Tequila and Chef, was injured and evacuated, leaving Chef and Tequila alone with no way to retreat. The warriors had to take shifts constantly. While one was on watch, the other rested or prepared food. They sourced water from the nearest spring and moved only at dusk the defenders also made a cross and prayed. The hardest part was the mortar shelling. When your shelter is being torn apart right above your head, we survived thanks to discipline and following orders precisely. At a position, the essentials are water, ammunition, medical supplies, and the support of your brothers in arms. When you treat each other like brothers, you can endure a lot, Chef emphasized. He added that what helped them hold on were thoughts of their loved ones and the awareness that one day their children would ask what they did during the war. Not long ago, the situation allowed for a rotation. Under Russian fire, other Ukrainian defenders reached their position to replace them. Now, Takeda and Chef are resting and preparing to pass on their combat experience to others. So that's, I'm sure, some incredible details yet to come out of their experiences over 160 days in a position in Pokrovsk. Now, this is a typical bit of footage, but, so one of these pieces of drone footage that show, in this case, Russians being taken out, maybe in the Dnipro River Delta. But I'm always thinking, what does this tell me? So when I watch something like this, okay, so what? We've seen so many things in this war, and I only show you things that I think tell us a little bit something different, or we can draw a conclusion from. And what I get from this is that in the midst of a war, or 4 years into a war, we have some Russian troops crossing a river, absolutely still, foggy river here, but this is almost like a child's dinghy. They're in a dinghy that's not big enough for one person. There's two of them in it, crossing a river, being pulled by another dinghy, which is similar. I mean, these aren't like CB-90 assault boats that the Ukrainians have been given, say, by the Swedes. This isn't even a boat with an outboard motor, a RIB, rigid inflatable boat. These are like kids' dinghies that these men are crossing the river on, and they're then taken out by drones. And you're just thinking, you're looking at their equipment. There's virtually no equipment on board. There's just a little paddle by the looks of it from the guy at the back. Your man here has some kind of AK gun that he's trying to ward off the drone with. And they're making their way across a river. Is this an assault? Is this a troop rotation? I think this is quite indicative of the situation the Russians are in. Of course, the issue for the Ukrainians is, as poorly equipped as these people are, and Stephen Bendal was saying this when I was having a chat with him yesterday, he's saying that the Russians they are struggling with manpower themselves, as in the level, the quality of the people they're getting in is dubious, and they're poorly equipped. And I think this definitely seems to confirm what he says. But the comeback to that kind of position is, but they have so many of them that they can overcome the idea that they're poorly equipped, poorly trained by, they're a human being, they have a gun and they have bullets. Therefore, they are a threat, and you have enough of them. It doesn't matter whether they're in kids' dinghies or CB-90s, they can still have a material effect on the Ukrainians and push them back territorially. Well, I don't know that 3 people on rubber dinghies crossing Dnipro here is going to do exactly that. But yeah, just wow. Okay, so many other videos as well. It's a real rich period for videos coming out. This is a Pokrovsk front. Drone pilots from the Ukraine's 79th Air Assault Brigade are striking Russian targets over 21 kilometers away. Footage shows precision hits in Hradivka, a staging point for Russian assaults on Myrnohrad. So what the Ukrainians are trying to do, obviously, is not have to fire on these troops with their own troops in positions in Myrnohrad. You want to be taking these troops out before they get to Myrnohrad. And what better way to do it than with huge numbers of drones hunting down these Russian troops one by one in these staging areas. So lots of footage coming out that's similar to that. Here we've got footage from a Vampire drone operator from the drone unit of the Ukraine's 28th Mechanized Brigade, catching a Russian group moving through trenches during a night pit patrol. 6 were spotted, several precision drops followed, only 2 survived, but both were badly wounded. And more footage like this coming out. These are what's interesting from this one is it's Baba Yaga drone. We don't often get like huge amounts of footage from these, but yeah, dropping IEDs on the Russians there at night. This is when these are most often used because they're larger drones, noisier drones, easier to spot. So you want to use them at night where it's harder to spot them, and they can have probably that invariably have better cameras on them than FPV drones, single-use drones and whatnot. So they are really useful in carrying more munitions and working, in this case, along trench lines, taking out Russian troops. Here's another video. This one is a flying skull. Fatally stops the enemy in the Prokrost direction. They hit here a car with an occupant, 2 buggies, 4 other cars, 2 Bukankers, the Scooby-Doo vans, and an ATV and a Gazelle. I'm not sure what a Gazelle is, but I mean, it's definitely not. We're not on a Kenyan safari here, but yeah. So is that must be a Gazelle, some kind of buggy thing there. Well, it says 2 buggies. I don't know. Anyway, a range of stuff getting hit there, and generally unarmored vehicles there, well, entirely unarmored vehicles. Shows you what sort of equipment the Russians are using, even around really hot areas like Pokrovsk. And the Russians are losing a ton of this kit on a daily basis. This kit is recorded by the general staff, the Ukrainian general staff. Generally won't be recorded by people like Oryx, Yakub Yanovsky, because most of this stuff is not military equipment, and so that can skew the lists, as I've discussed previously. However, here is a bunch of military equipment. This is a road of destroyed tanks, a collection point for damaged and destroyed Russian armed forces, T-90M tank, AT-80 BVM, BTR 82As, T-72 B3s, and other equipment. Oh, thank you, Ivan. That's really generous. And yeah, so here some extensive footage. Just going to turn the sound off for me. Yeah, extensive footage of equipment that's been taken out. There's an actual working tank that they pass. So this is obviously a road that's quite frequently used, but there's a lot of destroyed equipment here. And this is, you know, proper combat asset equipment. Your infantry fighting vehicles and tanks and APCs, not your unarmored buggies and motorcycles and quads and whatnot. So anyway, quite an interesting bit of footage here of a sort of road of death with the husks of vehicles. There's a turret that's been thrown, and yeah, just absolutely wrecked kit here along this road. So yeah, more turrets there that have been thrown. I think there is more as well. So here is another video of other vehicles that have been destroyed, with a couple of trucks and working vehicles by the side of them. I don't know if they're trying to try and scavenge for bits of stuff on them, but they're all hanging around. So you've got, yeah, quite a lot of tanks and high quality kit that's been absolutely mauled there. There's another video, and then here's another video again of the same road or similar area. So yeah, lots of kit of all varieties being lost by the Russians, same as the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are certainly losing a lot of their mobility vehicles. Now here I've shown you plenty of these, but I think this is probably the most incredible video of fiber optic webs on the front lines that I've seen yet. Just the sheer volume, scope, rain, I don't know, just this is incredible. Absolutely incredible footage. This is a town. These are buildings that are, look, I mean, just look at that. Look at the fiber optics out. I've not seen anything like this. This is an incredible bit of footage. It's like a beautiful Christmas, you know, it's almost like this is tinsel decorating the entire environment there, but it's not. These are fiber optics involved in deadly cat and mouse games, trying to kill people or destroy equipment. It's just, look at that. It's almost like a glistening sea, but it's just the fiber optics draped all over the fields around this settlement. That is incredible. and not really in a good way. Okay, one of the headline bits here. So the crew of Ukrainian Mi-28 helicopter of the 12th Separate Army Aviation Brigade died while performing a combat mission. I've been trying to work out whether they were what they were doing. So here we have an account. Very bad news released from Ukraine's Air Force with the crew of a Mi-24, sorry, helicopter killed yesterday during a combat mission. Today, a dark cloud hangs over our aviation family, says the statement. The crew of the Mi-24 helicopter died while performing a combat mission. This is an irreparable loss for aviation, for the country, and for the families who are waiting for their loved ones at home. We appeal to all concerned to join in supporting the families of the deceased. The collection is open to help 4 families. So that's 4 crew members lost here. All funds raised will be given to the families after the collection is complete. That is really bad news. I assume it was close to the front line rather than trying to take down a Shahed. I don't know that you'd have 4 crew members. I don't know, but I suppose you'd have just as many crew members whether you're operating close to the front lines as if you were trying to take down Shahed. So yeah, either way, this is a huge loss for Ukraine because they will have lost really, well, potentially experienced crew members as well as a very, very valuable helicopter. On the other hand, Russia has lost a bunch of kit as well on top of what we've already looked at. This is, I think, footage coming from the claim that I showed you yesterday of this convoy in Belgorod, an S-400 convoy that was partially taken out, and we heard that there was a launcher that was destroyed. I think that's the one you're seeing at the moment on the video, and then a launcher that was damaged, which you see just after. Let me expand the sides of it. So the one at the front, definitely damaged, definitely destroyed. That bad boy ain't going to be used again. Significant fire from there. And then you can see the drone hit this other one that was already smoking, by the way. So that looks like a second drone. Unfortunately, it cuts out there. So I presume that the thinking is, well, that first one definitely damaged. That bad boy ain't going anywhere. That's not going to be used again. That's beyond economic repair. But we can't be so sure about this second one. So I think these are the S-400 launchers. I mean, the claim is it's Belgorod, so it's almost certainly what happened to. It's the fate of those launchers that you saw in the footage of them in the fields, you know, on the move. So that's good. In fact, Max 25 has a synopsis of a number of bits of kit that were taken out in the same sort of time frame. Airview hit a 55 ZH-6 Nebo-U radar station in the Novorossiysk area in Crimea. At the same time, a fuel and ammunition depot of the 76th Airborne Assault Division of the invaders came under attack in the Zaporizhia region. And in addition, a drone storage facility in Makivka and a concentration of the invaders' manpower from the 114th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade in Donetsk were hit. These ones, you almost don't think about them. They're just like throwaway comments. Oh, yeah, and a concentration of invaders' manpower. I mean, that could have been 50 people billeted in a building that were taken out in one fell swoop, or it could have been 5, or, you know, who knows. The results of the defeat of the enemy's positional area of the 568, anti-aircraft missile regiment in the Rayevka area of the Belgorod region on December the 14th was also specified the destruction of 2 S-400. So Max 25 says they're both destroyed their SAM launchers with ammunition. There was a claim that 4 missiles were taken out in that as well. Okay, the tanker Valery Gorchakov that I reported in Rostov on Don that was hit, I think it was hit on the Don, which was attacked last night. Actually, this is now the 17th, so 2 nights ago, is sinking in Rostov. The governor said that 2 crew members were killed and 3 others injured. So that is now sinking, as you can see there. That's the end of that Shadow Fleet member. But then we hear this other big bit of news of great interest, says H.I. Sutton, a naval sort of expert. Unconfirmed reports from Russian social media of a Russian vessel attacked in the Mediterranean, and a high-ranking official of a security service was killed. Don't want to speculate publicly at this stage, awaiting more information. Per Russian reporting, it is a tanker with a high-ranking official, General Andrei Averyanov of the GRU. Why would a GRU boss be on a Shadow Fleet tanker? So that seems to be, I presume that picture's from that tanker. So it is on fire and in a lot of trouble somewhere in the Mediterranean between sort of Greece and North Africa. A bit more detail here. Max 25 says in the Mediterranean Sea, Ukrainian defense forces attacked a tanker, don't know how, belonging to Russia's Shadow Fleet. The ship was carrying officials from the GRU responsible for drone espionage in Europe. Sabotage. 7 were injured and 2 were killed. The liquidation of Andrei Vladimirovich Averyanov, Major General of the GRU, military intelligence, has been announced. Averyanov is responsible for shady dealings and espionage in the EU countries, sabotage and bombings in the EU. He conducted operations abroad on Putin's orders. That's a really big outcome there. Now, we hear this is on the back of hearing news that this is a title from an article. The Kremlin's brazen tactics, Russia's shadow fleet is doubling as a spy asset, intelligence sources say. So CNN reporting that Russian personnel with links to the country's military and security services have engaged in spying in European waters while working covertly on ships carrying Russian oil. In recent months, some of these ships, often registered to unrelated countries, have acquired extra crew members shortly before leaving port. How interesting. So Anton Gerashenko reports on this. Russia's shadow fleet is also being used for intelligence gathering. Additional crew members are increasingly appearing aboard these tankers transporting Russian oil. These individuals are Russian nationals with backgrounds in the military, law enforcement, or private military structures such as Wagner Group. According to intelligence sources, they are affiliated with the Moran Security, a security company with close ties to Russia's security and intelligence agencies. Many vessels from the shadow fleet operate in the Baltic Sea, where Russia borders several NATO member states. Dressed in Russian Navy camouflage uniforms, Russian nationals are monitoring European military facilities and photographing infrastructure. Experts view this as an element of Moscow's hybrid warfare. So in other words, Europe could well be happy that, and I don't know whether European agencies have been involved in helping to strike this particular tanker in the Mediterranean because it's taken out someone that's responsible for spying on Europe, right? Experts view this as an element of Moscow's hybrid warfare. Quote, Russia is testing us in the grey zone with tactics that are just below the threshold of war, such as drones buzzing airports and bases, aggressive activity in our seas above and below the waves, the UK's Foreign Intelligence Chief Blaise Metrawelli said. So this is, I think, pretty significant. And then finally, for this section, the Kilo-class submarine that we've talked about an awful lot. Well, we've got better satellite imagery coming out now. Remember, they have moved, like, for example, submarine here, they have moved other stuff away from this inner part of the port, but they haven't moved the submarine. So everyone is thinking, yeah, it's definitely been knackered. Well, it's now leaking fuel and lube into the sea, according to Serhiy Stenenko. Its rear section is partially flooded, with 2 compartments reportedly submerged after the hull was breached. And we heard from GMT Politico that there were casualties on board as well. So this is drawing out the length of the actual submarine under the water. So you've got the aft here, the propellers, the propulsors, and the fins and whatnot, and then you have the impact point of the underwater drone, and it is right next to where the end of the submarine is. And so, yeah, definitely would have caused problems, and it looks like it's leaking stuff. So it's not moved, it's in trouble. That bad boy is not going to be fixed, I don't think, in Novorossiysk. That is knocked out for the foreseeable future. So, okay, it would have been great if that had slammed into the middle of the submarine and the whole thing exploded and bish, bash, bosh. But actually, it's functionally almost the same anyway. You know, if it's taken out, then job done. It's not firing cruise missiles at Ukraine. That is staying put, and it ain't being fixed anytime soon. Right, on distant strikes, we're going to move on now. There were 160 drones sent last night. 108 of them were taken out. That's actually a pretty low interception rate. Weirdly, it just goes up and down quite a lot at the moment. So that's 52 drones getting through out of 160. That's almost 1/3. So it's sort of mid 60% of as an interception rate. That's not great. Don't really know where they hit. Having very little information about strikes from last night. I'll have a check right at the end of the video. But here is a moment a Shahid hit a bridge in Odessa. As a war crime, absolutely taking out civilian infrastructure here with civilians on it. In fact, a mother of 3 died in this strike, probably driving in a car, may have been walking, I don't know. But that is a strike on the bridge in Odessa. And here is the bridge after the aftermath of the Russian attack on the bridge in Mayaki on the Odessa-Reni highway. Ukrainian channels report that the woman was killed as a result of the strike. Sadly enough, I am quite interested in this because this isn't a huge amount of damage done by that drone, which is good news. As in, either not all drones have the maximum size of warhead, or that is the 90 or 100 kilogram warhead that we are supposedly getting from these Shahed drones, and they cause actually not massive damage when they hit key infrastructure. But I don't know. That to me seems eminently quickly repairable, and yeah, that gives me something of a little bit of hope that the Russian drones aren't always like massively destructive. Although that's killed someone and it has stopped that road from being used, certainly in the immediate future. So yeah. Now, talking of Odessa, it has come under all sorts of pressure. Here is a video from Anton Gerashenko saying, as a resident of Lviv, I asked that half of our electricity be taken from us and given to the people of Odessa. Thank you. Many residents of Odessa have been without electricity for 6 days now, and some also without heating and water, following a Russian attack on the city on December the 13th. And here's a video he's produced. I am actually going to turn the sound off, but of people's resilience, having a bit of disco under sort of battery power in the apartment. Here is how you have a fridge. You have a net bag out of the window. You go to places that are generators, and everyone plugs their phones in. You've got bathing babies there, I presume, baking bread, or no, heating bricks by the looks of it, actually. Using, I don't know, all sorts of different ways of being able to cope, and then coming together as communities and cooking for each other, and doing stuff. Obviously, gas stoves and all sorts. There's a little, I guess that would ordinarily be used for hanging baskets, maybe, would it? And it's there being used as a fridge, as an outdoor fridge, and then people, that's to protect their food from rain, putting an umbrella on top of it. Yeah, I'm not sure about the bricks. The bricks obviously retain heat, so maybe then if you I guess it's, if I'm going to cook my food, I'm going to heat bricks as well, and then the bricks will slowly release that heat afterwards, so that heat just doesn't dissipate and is lost quickly, and I can use that to maybe heat my apartment, just a hot brick. And people coalescing in congregating in shopping centers and public places to draw power for their devices, so on and so forth. So anyway, those are the challenges for people in Odessa at the moment. Right, what has Ukraine achieved overnight? Bearing in mind that we don't know what the Russians achieved, but they might have done quite a lot with 50-odd drones smacking into Ukrainian infrastructure. Here we have a combined heat and power plant in Orlovskaya. That's is that Orel? I don't know. That could be. So this is Rostov. Rostov was hit again. Don't know what was hit there, but something was hit in Rostov. And then electricity in several buildings in Orel, Russia. So that could have been that first video. Is not operating anymore. Possibly the local power station or a transformer has been compromised. And we hear that more footage is coming from an overnight missile attack on Orel thermal power plant, hit multiple times during citywide blackouts. So power plants being struck last night in Russia. Drone attack reported overnight on Tolyattiazot, a chemical plant in Samara region producing 3 million tons of ammonia annually. Strikes also reported in Tula and Voronezh regions. So quite a lot of stuff being done last night. Maybe there's quite a significant fire there at that ammonia production facility. It's actually one of the world's top 10 ammonia producers. And it's in Russia is ablaze after a precision drone strike. The Russian chemical giant in Samara region is the latest strategic target to go up in flames. And then we have, a kind of summary of the things that were hit. Those two, particularly Orel, where thermal power plant and a transformer were hit with missile strikes, and then that ammonia plant as well that would affect. I guess that's for the explosives industry, but also it's going to affect fertilizer and exports and whatnot, no doubt. An explosion of fire broke out in the Syntez OKA plant in Dzержinsk, Eastern Industrial Zone, the key Russian chemical facility, produces materials used in explosives, rocket fuel, and other military applications. So that's another facility that appears to have been hit. And then we hear that Russian tankers are now not sailing directly through the Black Sea, according to Bloomberg. To hide, they are clinging to the coast of Georgia and Turkey. Their path to the Bosphorus Strait has become 350 miles longer. So that's not only are they selling this stuff at arguably even a loss from Novorossiysk, like oil, but it's becoming even more expensive to export it because they're adding another 350 miles, more time, more fuel. They're doing what the grain exporters have done, hugging the sort of Romanian Bulgarian coast in the Black Sea, on the west of the Black Sea. But actually, that's not too bad because it's broadly not that different from a direct as a crow flies route from Odessa, say, to Bosphorus Straits. This is very much an inefficient way to getting all the way to the Bosphorus Straits. So Ukraine, having done a good job on those tankers. Right, moving on to other bits and pieces. First of all, the US has already lifted sanctions on a number of entities in Belarus. It's lifted sanctions on banking entities in Russia concerned with the atomic industry, the nuclear industry. It's lifted some sanctions prior to that as well. And now we hear the US has lifted sanctions on firms that supplied Russia's defense sector. So Valles International in Cyprus, 365 days freight in the UAE, Etasis in Turkey, and Finland's high-tech Koneisto. The Russian end users remained sanctions, no explanation from Washington, nor word on future policy changes. So it looks like the US has just lifted sanctions on key suppliers of components to Russia's military industry. I don't understand what is going on here. It's just like, could you more obviously be on the side of the bad guys here? But then we hear that Scott Bessent, and maybe this is just like left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. The US is preparing new sanctions against Russia, which could be announced as soon as this week, according to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He's occasionally quite strong on Russia, Scott Bessent. And this is ahead of Russia possibly being really difficult and not agreeing to any agreements vis-a-vis the negotiations. Apparently Kirill Dmitriev is he in the US at the moment already, going to Miami to talk about what agreements have been made between the US, the Europeans, and Ukraine. They're probably going to turn down any options of negotiations of a peace deal, and therefore the US want to, as they should, hold something over them in terms of leverage. But I guess it's all going to depend on whether Trump agrees to do that or not. Zelensky said, my appeal from Kupiansk, when he went to Kupiansk and recorded that footage, had a significant impact on both the US and Europe. It proved that Putin is lying about occupied territories. Now, interestingly, today, Putin has done his statements and he's come out and said, first of all, he said it was a fake bit of footage that Zelensky recorded, and then I think he changed his mind in the speech or whatever and said it was a kilometer from where he claimed he was, or something like this. So bit of confusion there from Putin, as he's essentially just trying to regain the PR narrative. He's claimed in his speech that he sees no Ukrainian readiness to end the conflict after kicking the enemy from Kursk. So he's talking about how well they've kicked out the Ukrainians from the Russian region, declaring allegedly 50% control of Liman, Myrnograd, Halaypole, and a full Kupiansk control with 3,500 surrounded Ukrainian troops, which is absolute nonsense. The other three, there is some truth in that. But as far as Kupiansk is concerned, absolutely not. Putin admits Russian economic growth is slowing and calls it a deliberate move, but we did it on purpose. Yeah, we wanted a really slow, crappy economy. Yeah, the slowdown in economic growth is a conscious step, he says, a price to pay for maintaining the quality of the economy. We don't want quantity, we want quality. And we're not selling hardly anything at the moment, but what we are selling is amazing. Yeah, sure thing, mate. So Putin's saying his normal maximalist BS. He said, we've got to stop this bastard. I don't know whether you meant Zelensky or the war in general. But anyway, Russian media reports that Russian's Ural's oil has dropped below $35 a barrel. At current trajectory, we'll hit $25 by New Year's Day, and that would be disastrous for the Russians. So, those, as mentioned, you've got a long and arduous route from Novorossiysk to the Bosphorus Straits before you get out to sell this stuff. Then it's sitting out in the middle of nowhere, not being sold. If they do get it out to, say, China, it's idling. And then when they do sell it, it's at insane discounts. Now, Russian media report that approximately, and I've only seen this one video and a number of people comment on this. I presume this is true. If it is, this is massive. So Russian media report that approximately 10,000 individuals, a labor contingent from India, have arrived in Moscow. That's the first group of Indians who arrived following Putin's recent visit to New Delhi. I wonder how many of them will be deployed in the front line and how soon. What are your estimates, says Gerashenko. My position is, even if you get none of them on the front lines, they are effectively frontline troops, because what they do is they allow the labor market and the economy to operate at least exactly as it is, or you get 10,000 people in the labor market and then you draw 5,000 Russians out and put them on the front line, or 10,000 Russians, or 1,000, whatever it is. This will facilitate more people going to the front line. So I equate any imported labor as effectively either supporting the war indirectly through working to support an economy that supports a war, or by two sides of a square here, where they come in to do the jobs that Russians then won't do because they'll be sent to the front lines. So this is bad news for Ukraine either way. We hear that Russia used chemical agents over 6,500 times on a battlefield in 2025, with nearly 12,000 documented cases since the full-scale invasion began, peaking at 894 chemical attacks in April using K-51 and RGVO grenades and CS and CN irritants, Ukrainian Support Forces Command reported. And then finally, Switzerland, a supposed bastion of neutrality, and individual freedom, sentenced to 18 months in prison in absentia a 49-year-old Swiss citizen, Avi Matola, who served in the Ukrainian armed forces as a sniper through 2024, valiantly defending Europe from the Russian fascists. And yet, unfortunately, Switzerland sentenced him. Avi picked the wrong side, according to neutral Switzerland. No prison for fascists invading a free nation. Quote, a young man from Ticino was fined and given an additional conditional fine. He had joined pro-Russian separatists in the Donetsk region in 2015. But that's all right in Switzerland. But apparently, if you join the Ukrainian side, that's not on. Oh dear. Right, just to see if there is anything else that has come out, because it's a very busy morning. We've got Zelensky has met Novorossiysk in Poland. That's a really important meeting. Videos appeared online allegedly showing a drone attack on a Russian Shadow Fleet tank in the Mediterranean Sea. Now that's significant. If this is a drone attack, the war has come to the Mediterranean. Reportedly, it's a Quendil tanker that transports Russian oil that was empty at the moment of the strike. There are reports that the vessel was critically damaged. And, apparently we have, here you have got drones recording this. So this does look like it would be a drone attack rather than a sabotage, a bomb on board. But if you've got the death of two people that appear to be connected to the GRU, at least one of them, GRU, sorry, then that is a really significant strike. The Czech artillery ammunition initiative continues. That's really good news. The new government doesn't generally appear to be taking actions against Ukrainian interests, but just talking populist BS nonsense now, while material support continues. So while Babiš, etc., is annoying, he is no Viktor Orban. So that's good. Footage reportedly shows the burning of this Russian Shadow Fleet tanker in the Mediterranean. Russian sources claimed an attack on the Quendil, allegedly carrying officials and GRU personnel for drone espionage, reporting 7 wounded and 2 killed. Information unverified. So it was that footage from this tanker by all accounts. That's a big bit of news, by the way. So anyway, that's enough from me. Just before I go, remember to go to atpgeo.com/donate. We now have a new fundraiser because we've succeeded with the Jiggers Poor one. So thank you to all of that. I will do a thank you video and talk about all the people who so generously donated to that one. It was absolutely amazing with Jonathan Fink from Silicon Curtain and Toonie Tuesday. And now we have started this one. I've just put one truck on this to try and get that done for the Christmas period. We are already at $467. It's been open for some time, but I haven't talked about it. There are, as normal, you can get pins and patches, and yeah, that all looks really, really good. So I want to get me some patches, so I'll be contributing to that one. And yeah, there is obviously, if you go to the campaigns, you can see how all of the different, goodness me, 85,000 already out of 110,000. This has been going for some time. I haven't talked about it at all. Preston Stewart, he's got almost 45,000, so he's done amazingly. Emu Squad, Silicon Curtain, Tanya Fiona, Sukhamimus, Political Drain, Eastern Border, Operator Starsky, King Resist, and we're down in 9th place. But then I've only just mentioned this, and the link is only just live now from our atpgeo.com/donate. So if you can help out that one, awesome source. Take care. Speak soon. Toodle pits.